Hello, welcome back to X-Men Classic. This is episode number 12, and in this episode I'm going over issues 20 and 21 of King X-Men Volume 1. With these two issues, you get a brand spanking new writer in the form of Roy Thomas. He takes over the book for the next couple years, and then after issue 40, it goes to a few different writers. Though he does come back to the book, but he does write a good chunk of the issues prior to the book becoming a reprint book. And first up, it's issue number 20, which features the return of Unity Untouchable, the Blob, and plus, basically, in this issue, you finally reveal it's finally unveiled in this issue of how Professor Charles Xavier lost the use of his legs. So the issue opens up with Unity Untouchable and the Blob dressed up as the X-Men, and they're robbing a bank, and they're smoking. It's the 60s, they're always smoking. And so, why they're wearing the X-Men uniforms, I'll tell that in a few minutes. I think that they're members because they're wearing the X-Men costumes. So it cuts back to something before that, where Cyclops is leaving the X-Men. He leaves not why, and the X-Men get word via the news that somebody is dressed up in their costumes. And also noteworthy about this issue, not only is this the start of a new run, plus you get the debut appearance of Cerebro Mark II. That's it right there, one that Xavier is working on. Yep, this thing right here, that's Cerebro Mark II. Now, it's taken him about 3 issues after Magneto destroyed in issue 17. So it's taken a few issues to build a new one. And he's actually identified the two mutants who's dressed up as them. And it's the Blob and Eunice. And he thinks there's a third guy. Now, interesting little fact. For Eunice the Untouchable, this is the first time since issue 8. So basically for him, it's been probably a little over a year since his last appearance. And Blob, last time he appeared was the issue before Eunice made his debut appearance. So it's interesting, though, these two have teamed up. And I think there's a third guy, which I'll review who this is once I get to the end of the issue. So they go out, and it turns out the person who actually is their master, one who actually is behind all this, is Lucifer. Yes, the guy who the X-Men first met in issue 9. Yep. So you return characters from issues 7 through 9. That is something right there. And, of course, the end of flashes back to about a few days ago, where they had the Blob meeting Unity Untouchable. And they meet in a wrestling ring. Yeah, the Blob was actually one of Unity Untouchable's opponents. And the match, I think, ends in a and the match becomes a draw. And they both reveal to each other, basically, it's obvious they're both mutants. And they said they become partners. And, of course, mostly it's just smoking. And, of course, then it cuts to just after they just robbed the bank. Cyclops shows up, attacks them, and the people think that he's working with them. Excuse me. So he attacks them, and everything's there in it together, so he runs away. Lucifer gets a bit disappointed. All of a sudden, Angel shows up, and then Angel attacks them. Of course, they're trying to fill up the bag with their money. And then somehow, the Blob gets his hands on the ray gun that they used back in issue 8. So they sort of increase his power. So they're waiting a year for this. So he just attacks the X-Men. Of course, the X-Men can't hit him. And then they flee on a train. And then after this, they don't show up again for another year. I am not kidding about this. They show up for this one issue, and they're not seen again for a whole year. Yep. And then the X-Men tries to stop Lucifer. And Then it um, cuts back to Jean Grey. Then it cuts back to the Xavier Institute, where Xavier's like knocked out cold because of they're testing it because Lucifer's testing a new weapon. And then it flashes back to how Xavier first met Lucifer, how he managed to convince people to turn against him, being with a small town. So they attack his base operations, and then he contacts the Supreme, who actually just showed up in the next issue, by the way. He attacks them, and of course, attack his castle. Like, he knows what's going on, so he decides to so he's formed his Supreme One. Of course, he's referred to by the Supreme One as Agent One. So there's been uprising, and so they decided to move his base operations to Sector B, and he goes there right away. And of course, he fights Xavier, and then he drops a rock on Xavier's legs. So that basically is how Xavier lost the use of his legs. I mean, it took the X-Men writers, 3 years to explain this? So, okay. So, apparently, of course, this is contacted again. Basically, it's time to unleash his robot called Dormus. So the X-Men go out to find Lucifer, and then the issue ends with them flying off. Okay, then it cuts to issue number 21, which is part 2 of this very story, and this debut of this new robot called Terminus. They basically almost get shot into space in their private jet. Yeah, it was before they just showed up. Yeah, and they fly around. They find his place, and he for some reason he has like this metal thing on his head. Basically, does a shield from mental attacks from Lucifer. So apparently, they convince a couple people who work for Lucifer to become sort of like their hostage and take him right to him. And of course, these robots take Xavier captive, and then when I first saw this, I'm like, wow, man, this artwork is so beautiful. Jack Gavin does a fantastic job with this artwork. I mean, look at this. This is basically part of Lucifer's base operations. It's just one wall. The wall looks so great. Yeah, the wall looks really good. So the X-Men just escape from a series of traps. They take on some robots. Xavier and Lucifer have sort of like an argument over Dormus. They introduce him to him. And Dormus is basically a robot that's supposed to help him take over the world. And apparently Lucifer's also takes some slaves. So the X-Men are taken captive again by these robots. Of course, they get free and they take them out, the robots. And they somehow find Lucifer and Charles Xavier. Of course, Jean Grey does something quite funny when she uses his own cloak against him and puts over his head like, "Curse you, Marvel Girl!" Yeah, too bad you don't see. You actually don't hear anybody say that now. Curse you. They usually say, well, usually they swear to them, like they curse. And then, of course, they try to take those machines, and the X-Men are still fighting the robots. Basically, it becomes a humongous fight scene. And of course, the robots are finished. So he contacts the Supreme One, and because of his past failures, he's banished to a nameless dimension. And as far as I know, he disappears. He disappears for a long time. I'm not sure exactly when he returns, but he does. And then the issue ends with them just leaving Lucifer's base operations to fly off into the next issue. So overall, what I think of these two issues, I gotta say these two are really good issues to start off Roy Thomas's run. I mean, bringing back 3 villains no one has seen probably like in over a year. Bringing back the Blob, Unit Untouchable, and Lucifer in part 1 of this 2-part story. After they're taken out, they spend most of the rest of part 1 of their story and pretty much almost the entirety of part 2 taking out Lucifer. So, still 2 really good issues. and I do recommend when you get a chance to read these issues. So I give issues 20 and 21 combined a 9 out of 10. So basically, in the case of new stuff for this series progression, the only thing that these two issues do is just bring back a few good villains. You get a first appearance of Cerebro Mark II. You get to see their jet that they use, one of the many different vehicles they use. They still have not come with the X-Jet yet. Let me think. I don't think there's much anything new, but it's a nice, good two-parter to start off the run for Roy Thomas. Okay, so that's it for this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode, which will be episode 13. I'm covering the next two issues of Roy Thomas's run, issues 22 and 23. Until then, see you there. Bye.